everyone and welcome to Strictly Quantum. This is the first episode where we will be talking strictly about EK Quantum products, liquid cooling and other interesting new products. Here with me is Joe Robey. He is the Lead RnD Designer and basically we'll be talking about the recent launches, upcoming launches and everything that's interesting. And like I said, this is the first show that we will be having, and we will be trying really hard to have these shows monthly or maybe even more often, so that we will be updating you about new EK products. I think that the most mentioned product lately is the Founders 3090 GPU water block, and we will kick this live session off with just this product. Joe, what can you tell about the 3090? Why is it different than the 3080 water block?
So first thing, I'd just like to say hello to everyone, and especially hello to all the 3090 Founders Edition fans. We had a great time in the chat during the expo. Absolutely millions of you, and we're really happy to see so many blocks sold, and we're very busy preparing them. As such, I have some of the very first samples to show you, so you can see the differences from the 3080. One of the smallest and most obvious is that we needed to add a little tiny cover for the SLI bridge, so that is there, should you choose to run two of these. The next big difference was actually the fact that it's just slightly bigger, and we didn't want to just scale up the design literally because it would be really unbalanced. As you know, on the 3090, the PCB is just extended for about 20 millimeters on one side, but otherwise the layout of all the components is exactly the same. So we have a much bigger cold plate now, and we put a lot of effort into making sure that it stays visually balanced as well as hydrodynamically balanced. So like before.
So this is also the reason why it is a bit more expensive, because it is bigger and it also has some extra parts in it.
Yep, just like before, there's a plexi trapped between the aluminium and the copper, so all of the threads are metal on metal. There are no threads in plastic on this block whatsoever. You have obviously contact patches for the RAM, for the core and for the VRM, as well as every single minor component over 1.5 watts on the PCB, so literally everything. And just like before, we have the open space for the terminal, but we're also utilizing this little triangle in between, and that's actually there to make direct contact with the backplate. So when you have that installed, you have both the passive cooling of the fins on the backplate and some active assistance from the cold plate.
We have also people also asked once they have seen that we were also doing a like active backplate cooling. People immediately started asking, will we be doing a active backplate cooling for the 3090 as well? First we said no, but then what happened?
Yeah, so we were really happy with this hybrid solution, because the best thing about it is that you don't need to pull the block apart when you receive it. So you just simply remove the backplate, fit your card, put the backplate back. So you don't break the liquid cooling seal, you don't break the pressure seal that we apply from the factory. You don't void that warranty, and it's a really straightforward installation. You don't need to take any O-rings apart if you don't want to. Obviously, adding an active solution is going to be a little bit more advanced to fit, and also one other issue is that the thickness on the backside makes it incompatible in certain ITX boards, occasional Threadripper and X299 boards where the graphics card's on the first slot. So to keep it really slim, we implemented the hybrid solution, but We know lots of people maybe don't want to use this for small form factor builds. They've got all the space, or they even want to put it vertically, and so we will be offering a full-blown active block for the backside. It will come as an addition to the standard block, so you can remove the original backplate and replace it with the active part along with its own terminal to seamlessly integrate everything together.
This means that everyone who has already ordered this block can just keep his order, and then when we have the active backplate on, they can just add it on later, so you can keep your block and just add the active backplate cooling to it. One more thing about these special edition founders block was the question: will we be offering standalone backplates so that people who want all black or who want all silver blocks should be able to buy these backplates separately? What can we tell about this, Joe?
So yes, and also your active backplate will come in purely silver or purely black. We just decided today, and we'll also release just the backplate piece on its own in the same natural anodization and black anodization as the original cooler. So people will be able to change to all black if they want the stealth look, or silver for the ultimate fanboy.
We should be moving on to our next topic, but we have set some baits here on the desk which we weren't planning to mention until someone notices them, but we already have some viewers seeing some of these new fittings here, and let's start off with the offset fittings. Can you tell more about these, Joe?
Yep, so seeing for the first time, this is our offset fitting. We have a 14mm, 7mm, and later, we don't have it here today, but a 3mm eccentric fitting accompanying them. They'll be in 4 classic satin titanium, the matte black, nickel, and black nickel colors. And these are really interesting actually, because we managed to make a 14mm offset from one solid piece. So unlike other fittings, we managed to make them really low profile
and also very clean looking.
Exactly, very clean looking. These are milled on the outside and turned on the inside, so all machine faces perfectly crisp like all the other torque fittings.
Also, we have some other baits, obviously, which are much more visible, are these colored compression rings for our torque fittings. What can we tell about them? And here we also see 2 more fittings which are fully assembled. We can talk about the aesthetic compression rings first. So are we going to bring this to the market, or is it just here to bait people?
This is absolutely not bait. They'll be along very soon. We'll be following with every single color that we have on the accent ring, as well as every single size. So that's lots of combinations, and we will have these available in packs of 6 in the color of your choice. So obviously purple, gold, green, blue, red, black, and nickel. The reason we have black and nickel, even though you can already get them in fittings, is that maybe you want to have a contrast. So a nickel base with a black top and a blue ring in between, anything you could think of. So there's now infinite possibilities for the torque series. And to kick things off, we'll have these 2 standard items. These you can buy pre-configured with red, black, or blue satin, and just to save you, we know these will be the most common configurations. Everyone likes blue and red. We know from our previous fittings.
Yeah. So are these compression rings will be available for like all of the 6 torque fittings which we have, the STC 1013, 10, 16, 12, 16, and the HCC 12, 14, and 16 millimeter sizes as well, right?
Yep, all 6 sizes.
Do we have an estimate date for these fittings to become available?
So I think we will have within a month the pre-assembled fitting, and very shortly after the complete range of every size.
Cool. So that the fittings have been noticed, then we will skip on to our next topic, which is the distro plate for the Lian Mini. And I will just pass this on to Joe so that you explain why is this distro plate special and why is it made as it's made.
Yep, so this is just a little bit different because this is our first O11 distro that doesn't cover the entirety of the glass panel from the front, and the reason being is the O11 Mini is just a perfect length fit on a 360 radiator, and we didn't want to remove that compatibility. So this clearance to the left, the top and the bottom is for the very ends of the radiator, so that you can install an SE360 at the bottom, an SE360 at the top, and also an SE240 in the side. So that's absolutely crazy because that's more than we can fit with our standard distro in the normal O11.
When is this going to be available? Do you know?
I think you know.
I know. It is already available in the shop. It should be available in the shop, so you can place pre-orders for this distro plate. Shipping will be mid of March, and I think that's it about this distro plate. We are really happy that we could work once again with Lian Li to like make a supporting product for their cases, which are nice, and then it also looks really nice in the white version of the O11 Mini. Next topic, if we don't have any questions from our viewers, right now I don't see that we have anything really burning. We will skip on to the pump covers, and Joe, you will give me back this distro so that you have room there, and I will pass on one by one these really nice pump covers, and you will be explaining them, why did we make them and how are they made. Here's one more.
Yeah, here we have one installed.
Yep.
So this actually started with the D5, which is a cover if you should have your D5 equipped on a reflection or a kinetic FLT. And the reason behind that is you can really visibly see the sticker when it's mounted in a build, and the cables exit from the front of the pump, so it's not so clean. And this this cover will replace the acetal ring that locks the D5 in place on our FLT products, and your pump slides inside and you thread the cables through the big hole. When the pumps come all the way in, then the cables are pushed into the small piece, and then you have one neat spot where the cables route out. Obviously this is symmetrical, so you can send the cables in any direction you like. And yeah, this is a solid milled block of aluminium, quite a massive piece, and we will have it anodized in black and nickel plated.
We were also discussing maybe making satin silver versions as well. We will see if it's going to be possible, but nickel and black will surely be made. I think we don't have any estimated launch dates on these so far, but it is nice to actually know that they will be coming at a point. We have a question from our viewers. Even though we have discussed the drain valve in one of our previous live shows, we have a question right now. They are asking, how does the drain valve work? So I think that you will have to show it again.
Okay, so I'll be even more descriptive than before. This is our drain valve. The first part, which looks like the compression ring of a normal fitting, is actually the plug. And the reason this locks all the way around the outside is to prevent you from opening it while it's installed. So with that off, it reveals actually a normal coloring. This is the STC 1016 size. So you can even make this match the rest of your fittings. And to open the valve, you simply slide back this collar. And as what's happening there is there's two sets of holes, and inside the collar there's a little bridge that lets the coolant get from one side to the other side. So it's as simple as that, and it even has a little tactile click inside. So to install it, you push it to the close position, and then it will rotate the thread, and you can install it. And once it's opened, the ring is free to rotate around the outside, so you can't accidentally unscrew it and have a leak behind. Additionally, there's a female thread in the opposite end, so you can attach a length of tube and safely get the coolant out of your system. So this was a really cute solution that let us get the size of the ball valve down a little bit, because this doesn't need a handle, and you also don't need to put it on a rotary fitting, so that should be a big help.
And also it will be available in all of the standard finishes, so nickel, black nickel, and satin titanium as well. I think if we don't have any new questions, then we will skip on to our next subject which we wanted to talk about, and it's again active backplates, but this time we will be talking for the reference edition block, and at this point I can also confirm that we will be making them for the XIII EVGA and the Zotac Trinity blocks as well, because it's ideally the same reference block, but the PCB is just a bit longer. So we have showed the active backplate in our expo show, but we want to talk about it a bit more, because it is not just a water block which is on the back of the backplate, is it, Joe?
No, so the copper actually contacts the PCB directly with the thermal pads, and this isn't just a block on the outside of the aluminium, but the aluminium actually has a huge hole in it, and this comes through it really neatly. So the size of the copper is actually the same size as the copper on the GPU block itself. So no corners cut, so to speak, and you have full active cooling for the full GPU. It comes with its own terminal installed and leak tested, and you then must remove the terminal from your GPU block and replace it with this whole assembly.
Which again means that if you already own a block, then you can keep your original block. This won't mean that you will have to buy a whole new block. You can just buy the additional backplate and then fit it on it. And also about the next active backplate coolings, I was just asked today when are we going to launch for the Strix, and which one is going to be the next card which we will be doing the active backplate cooling for.
So priority list on the backplates, once we have the XIII, the Trinity, and the reference out of the way, then the Founders Edition will sneak in from absolutely insane amount of requests, and that will be followed with the Strix and for the Win 3 and possibly Tough last. These are now kind of stacking in with our ordinary blocks, and they take practically the same amount of time to develop because they have almost exactly the same amount of components as a block. So don't expect them all to drop in one day.
Yep.
But we'll be trickling these in alongside the 3070s and the 6000 series from AMD.
Questions about the For the Win? Yeah, and we just mentioned that we will be doing it, but we can't promise any specific dates on the other active backplate cooling solutions. Maybe the Tough as well, right?
Yep.
Because the TUF is quite similar like the Strix. This means that we will probably be making it for the TUF as well. We will see how big is the demand, and then we will decide on the TUF as well. About pricing, this is not going to be all that cheap, right? It is because it's a actual normal backplate with a hole in it with a added water block.
Yeah. Other than the fins, you have absolutely every component that's there on the normal block. The fins are obviously the most time-consuming part to machine on a conventional GPU block, so we'll be able to pass on a small saving, but otherwise exactly the same amount of parts, the same amount of time to assemble.
Yeah.
So yeah.
About the active backplate for the 3090 founders, we have a question about how will it look. So can you describe? I have seen some models, but maybe Joe can describe it with a few words so that you have a understanding of how will it look.
So it will practically be a synergy between what we have already on the backplate and what we have on the front side of the block. So we won't introduce any new insane design elements. The triangle will stay, and you can expect a large plexi window with a view to the cold plate and a nice aluminium bezel that still encompasses the entire PCB. So, you won't get any nasty angles at all. So yeah, I think the best way I can show it, it will be a little bit something like that.
Looks nice. Some other questions which we are receiving right now is about 30th series GPU blocks for Gigabyte series GPUs. Do we have it planned, Joe? What's happening with them, and why don't we have many of them made this time around?
So the first one which we want to bring will be undoubtedly for the XIII, and we'll try and make it cross-compatible with the Master. I don't know whether it will be compatible with Master Revision 1 and Master Revision 2, because it seems they're not finished yet, so we didn't want to jump in with a block that would only be compatible with one card. We also had quite a lengthy process to get hold of one. That's the main thing holding us back. So our cards came out practically in the same order as we got the cards from our partners. So
yeah. While we are at cards, we have a question about the 3070 GPUs. So which 3070 GPUs will be getting blocks? We have also covered this topic in our previous live session, but since we have people already here watching, we will just repeat everything. We don't mind, so just feel free to ask questions and we will answer them. And Joe has the list in his head.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3070 will be following roughly the same as we did with 3080. We already have the Founders Edition and the Strix on the shop, and we will be following with a Trio, an Extreme, a TUF. TUF is ready very soon. And then we also have a reference block, but the reference card from the 3070 seems to be covering even less manufacturers than the 3080, so we will probably hold that back until we see every single card that could possibly be incorporated, because we really rushed with the 3080, and then the Trinity came along and it's slightly longer, could have fitted the same block, and Inno3D also modified their PCB, and it's still very similar. So with the 3070, we can't afford to repeat so many reference editions, and it's not in the same price league. So we hope to just get one block out.
So finally, we have some questions popping up. Thank you for the questions and keep them coming, because we are also here because of you, not just so that we blab our stuff and then we end. We have a question about the active backplate cooling and the Strix and the coil wine, which is quite specific on the Strix blocks lately. So what can you say? Will the active backplate also help the coil wine?
I don't expect so. The coil wine's really not related to temperature, so it's not going to matter that we have the components any cooler on the backside. But what does make a difference is how we apply pressure with the thermal pads. So we've had a revision to the manual and a few tweaks to which thickness pads go where, and we managed to solve the issue for XIIIs and for Strixes that we're having. So we will go with the same pad strategy on the active backplate, and we expect similar results. Some people are very lucky with silent cards no matter what, and some people sadly are quite unlucky with Strixes. So.
I mean, maybe having a block on the back, it will also help, because I think that it makes a much sturdier composition than just having a backplate on. But I guess that we will wait and see how will it play out. That's all we can say. Some more interesting questions are also rolling in, and which brings us back to the founders. We have discussed that you will also have the option of having the ports directly on the block, and then you will be able to swap it out for a version where you will have the ports through. If we make the active, we will make the active backplate cooling for the founders, what kind of a port setup will it have?
That is a good question. It's not yet completely decided. Let us know, actually, if you desperately prefer one setup. And there's also the option, because of the extra thickness, that we could go with both at the same time and have 6 ports on the terminal. But that takes away the nice branding space, and engraving on the plexi that gets illuminated is really nice.
So this is actually a quite unique chance here, where you could influence how do we make the block. So type away, and we will read your feedback later.
I can see pluses and minuses, because you probably would want to run the active backplate if you had them in SLI, and then you really need the through terminal to be able to link them neatly. At the same time, the direct terminal is more useful in big builds. The through terminal is better for small form factor, so we'll see.
Next question. Kingpin GPU block.
Oh yeah.
We want to do it, right? But
yeah, we would love to do that.
We would love to do it, but I don't think it will happen, because we have a lot of other GPUs which are widely commercially available. We always like doing crazy stuff and the high-end stuff, but I don't think that we will have time for it, right?
Occasionally special things happen.
Yep.
It has been known, but yeah, we absolutely have to finish the 3070s, the 6800s, the 6900s, and prepare everything. We have a lot on with all of those. Yep. So the Kingpin's not one which we would look to add from the start, generally because there's not many of them around, sadly.
So James is asking, is it possible to redesign the 011 XL distro to fit a side radiator for more heat dissipation?
That is absolutely possible. Something we could do, but you also, if you are very crafty, can fit the side radiator with the standard distro. The way the mini distro is adding the side functionality is with the return tube from the top rad. You can make one bend back very easily to the side radiator, and then one straight tube forwards to the distro, and that's actually where the offset fitting comes in. An offset fitting on the side distro will go directly into a 90-degree fitting on the front. So yeah, you can squeeze in an SE to the standard O11D and also to the XL.
I guess if we are doing questions again, we will pop back to the FE again. So someone asking, are we going to be making acetal terminal options for the FE blocks? I mean, we could, but that would eventually kill the point of the RGB, which is also inside the terminal as well, right?
Yeah, we did originally have a full acetal block with no window planned at all, but it really detracts so much from the design that we didn't think anyone would pick it. But it's certainly possible if all the hundreds of people who bought the original block scream in the chat that they want an acetal terminal, and it might just happen. We made an active backplate for those guys. So
about the distros, we have one distro here, but are we going to make something for like any other case anytime soon?
I think for a little while the Mini will be our last. Simply put, the distros, we have some extremely popular distros and some less popular. So the XL for the O11 sells like crazy, and the Fractal and the Evolve a little bit slower. You can always repurpose some of the distros we do have, and there's a question I saw on social media earlier today was, can I put the G1 distro into a Fantex Antho 2? And yeah, anywhere that has the 105mm mountings from a 120mm fan, it will sit straight in. There's also lots of opportunity to squeeze in the Evolve X distro.
Yep.
We put it into the Sakura for our show build earlier in the year. So yeah, be creative with the distros, and if we see people repetitively cramming it into the wrong case, then we'll look out for that case.
Yeah. We will be skipping on to our last topic for like this live show, and it is the Asus ROG Maximus 13 Extreme Glacial motherboard, which has the has a quite unique cooling solution, which we call the Ultra Block. We will discuss why do we call it this way, what are its features, and in the meanwhile, feel free to ask questions, and we will be answering them as well. Feel free to ask questions about anything, and let's get back to the Glacial motherboard. So, what are the main features of this monoblock, Joe?
So, firstly, the fact that the coolant is channeled absolutely everywhere on this monoblock. I think that the snake of coolant which passes through it must be 0.5 meter long. So it's a crazy layering of materials to make it all right, to fit the sensors inside. There's leak sensors, temperature sensors, a flow meter in there, a CPU block in there if you can believe it, cooling for the PCH, all the VRMs, the primary M2 drive is also contacted by the cold plate on the PCH, so this is an absolute giant of a block. The cold plates in it laid out next to each other are also just absolutely huge, and everything is covered in aluminium. The beautiful branding on it, it's really something else.
So once it was launched, we have seen some comments that it's really expensive, but I think that now we have seen some motherboards on the market that are even more expensive. So taking into account that it has a screen, that it cools the VRM CPU, PCH, and it also cools a M.2 SSD slot. I think that it's a nice trade, and this is actually why it is called an ultra block, and it also has a small screen integrated in it. I can also mention that the entire motherboard itself weighs 4 kilos, so it's like almost 9 pounds, right?
Yeah, that's probably the best price to weight ratio of any motherboard out there. Yeah, I don't think you'll feel cheated when you pick the box up.
You have mentioned that it has built-in sensors, and it actually has 2 sensors in the in and out ports as well, right?
Right, so there's 2 temperature sensors in there that are calibrated against each other, so you can see the temperature difference across the block and effectively how much heat you're putting into the loop with the block. And you also have a leak sensor on both ports. And yeah, the flow meter's down there in the middle.
So how will the cooling engine which we have inside the Glacial stack up against a magnitude CPU block?
So comparing a CPU block to a monoblock is obviously never a fair comparison, because you have all the extra heat of the other components, and you also have all the added restriction of the other components. So you know, there's like effectively 3 blocks inside it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't test 3 CPU blocks in one loop.
So basically, if someone wants maximum cooling performance on the CPU, he should choose a CPU block. But whilst we have the full board cooling, which will be cooling the CPU, VRM, and other things as well, these 2 things aren't really to be compared against each other.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think many people do in reality. They see the monoblock, they see the look of it, and that's what they want. So we don't find that there's much competition between the two, but certainly a dedicated CPU block is optimal for performance.
We got a question about the D5 pumps and the sleeving, and the question is, will we make the D5 pump so that the sleeving is inside the pump? I don't think that's really feasible, because there is not much space in there, but actually if you have just joined the show, then we can show one of these pump tops which will be actually taking care of this issue, so that you won't be seeing the cable not being sleeved all the way into the pump. And obviously this is a more expensive solution, but it's also a really elegant and clean way to deal with this issue. Questions. Also, DDC pumps. Some notice that while the D5 pump has a nice sleeve on it, the DDC pump hasn't. Are we going to do something about this?
Oh, we're most certainly going to do something about this, because we will be soon upgrading DDC to a new spec, and we have black wires, SATA power connector, so also a black connector on the fan, black connector on the SATA, so all black and flat ribbon style, so you can route it really neatly in small form factor builds. I think that's going to make a huge difference for the DDCs, and we will also have a transition to SATA power on the D5 as well.
So there are not many questions going on at the moment, and we have covered everything that we have prepared for you. We can just fly over everything that we have mentioned here if someone joined later the show. So we have started out with the 3090 FE. Then we talked about the mini distro plate and what are its options. Then we talked about the pump
No, we didn't.
covers.
We didn't mention the DDC.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we also have a DDC ready version, and because the DDC is air cooled, these also have some fins engraved to increase the surface area substantially. But unlike before, it's still a nice, perfect, solid look from the outside. So you don't see the edge of the fins. You see a nice, clean surface, just like the D5 cover. The opening for the cables is all a little bit revised to help you hide your heat shrink. I know on the old school DDC heat sinks, you have a big problem when you sleeve the cables that the heat shrink doesn't fit back inside. So this sets out to resolve that little grievance that people have. And yeah, again, there's also in black and nickel.
Cool. The next topic which we covered were the colored compression rings. Then we jumped on to the active backplate cooling, and we showed that it's a actual block inside the active backplate cooling. It is not just a block which is on the backplate. And then we have finished our discussion with the Maximus Glacial block, and we just got a question for the end of the show. Is it possible to make black nickel backplates? And I'm going to answer this question. Yes, it's possible, but doing black nickel is actually quite hard because there are stainings during this process, and if you have a large surface like a backplate, it is particularly very hard to like achieve a nice clean finish without any spots or stains on it, and this is why we don't do it at all.
Actually, we have done it. The 5700 XT Special Edition had a black nickel backplate, and yeah, it's very difficult to do, and it's also a really hard surface to clean. So if you touch it once, you're in big trouble. But it's possible. Black nickel ideally is better applied to brass. So for the aluminium backplates, it's a bit of a challenge.
We will keep the show going for a few more minutes because we have some interesting questions coming in. So EK Loop Connect update. I think that the promised date that we will have the software finished is March. So right now we have no updates on it, but the date to expect it is March. And the next question, someone asked about the scratched founders block. So this person hasn't been up to date about the scratch blocks. Joe, can you explain what happened with the founders scratch blocks?
Yep. So this was really unfortunate, and actually all of the samples we had here were perfect. And when we moved them around the building, moved them to our other departments, all perfect. We tried to improve the unboxing experience as much as possible by taking the plastic bag away. So as soon as you open the box, you're presented with the product. And sadly, that was the problem because the foam that was inside the top layer of the box was actually quite abrasive for the plexi, and the larger key, the loop key that was packed in the top, pushed the foam onto the plexi. So that was the source of the problem, and it was also very visible on the founder's block because it has perfect lighting and a perfectly polished plexi on both sides. So we've taken care of it, and for a brief time they'll be inside a bag so we can keep up, and when we're ready we'll add some peel porn.
Satin finished backplates. Is there a chance? And we have one more question about backplates, brushed backplates. These are all very good ideas which we don't have planned, but keep the ideas rolling in, so we might actually do some of these things. Actually, the satin titanium fittings are like getting really popular. People like it, and I guess that we will just have to start doing other products as well, which will be following up with the design. Question about monoblocks. Are we going to make monoblocks for the cheaper motherboards like the Z490 Asus Strix? Well, we won't be making any monoblocks for the Z490s anymore, because the Z590 is actually coming available, and we will be, of course, focusing on actually doing monoblocks for some of the AMD boards as well.
Yep. So we'll do our best to cover every single brand and every single form factor, and in doing so, I'm sure we'll cover from more modestly priced boards to the absolutely top end. So yeah, we always try and cover a range with monoblocks, the same as with graphics cards. But we must also focus a little bit on X570. I think they'll see a few re-releases hopefully in the next few months.
We will do two more questions, and then we will end the show. Thanks everyone for joining in, and thanks for actually asking these questions, which are quite important, so that we also get feedback from the viewers. Is that glass in products? We have had glass products before. We had them in reservoirs, but this question is: are we going to ever bring back glass to reservoirs and maybe GPU blocks as well?
So glass is not an unknown quantity. It's very predictable, especially when we break it. But we always used to working with machine materials from the beginning. All of our blocks have been predominantly milled, and that's why we always pick up the plexi every single time. But yeah, that's definitely something for us to start with blocks like the Founders Edition, where there's very, very little machining left on the top now. We put all of the machining into the copper to give it that perfect finish, and glass is probably the next step for things like that. So I expect we'll use it on a special project at some point in the coming year, and when we become confident with it and that they all safely arrive, they all get assembled correctly, then we can consider moving it onto our higher volume products.
We had glass reservoirs, we had a glass combo, but the major issue with this product was that sometimes they have arrived broken. So if we will ever go back to using glass, first we will make sure that we have the right boxes, packaging, so that when someone orders it, that it actually arrives in one piece. And for us to finish up this first episode of Strictly Quantum, we have a question from James. James wants to build obviously the most awesome PC on the world. He wants to use a Asus ROG Maximus 13 Extreme Glacial in his build.
That's a good start.
Yep. And he wants to use the 3090 FE block vertically mounted with a 011 XL distro. So he is asking, because of the Founders Special Edition 3090 block is taller, will it work in a vertical position with this motherboard and the distro?
Absolutely. I think that will be a great combination for the XL. Not because the spacing's right. Obviously, with a vertical bracket, you'll just put it in the lowest space you can with the right lower radiator, and it's probably best to have the ports at the front and use the rotary extender together with a static extender and a 90 rotary to connect it like rigidly at the front, and then you have no tubes to contend with above the fans. You can sit down the vertical bracket as low as possible, and then the GPU will be nice because you don't have a terminal on the side, you have it on the end. So yeah, generally in vertical builds with wide cards, the terminal's poking up and blocking
Yeah.
the nice view, and with the Founders you don't have that. You will even have space for an active backplate.
If you would have some of the ports offset, we will have the offset fittings. Actually, when can we expect the offset fitting? I think it's month and a half, something like that, right?
Yep. We have the first samples, and I see absolutely no issues with them. They look absolutely beautiful, so I expect they will be along in less than 2 months.
Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and once again, we would like to thank you for joining us, spending this hour with us, talking about the best liquid cooling products right now on the market. If you have any questions, please save them for later. We will most probably have some of these shows also in the upcoming weeks. That's it. Take care and bye-bye.
Yeah, absolutely. If you liked it, then please subscribe and we can make more.
Share it.
Yeah, share. If all of your friends subscribe as well, we'll make even more. So we hope you enjoy this content. We really like making it. We like to keep you as up to date as possible, and it's really nice that we can show you things that are just around the corner.
Yeah, because these are really fresh things. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.